Trevor Loudon, thank you so much for being and taking the time to talk with me here. One of the things that we don't talk about a whole lot is the issue of no-fault divorce. And I know that you're an expert on the history of communism, Leninism, the Bolshevik Revolution, stuff like that. Can you please talk a little bit about that issue? Because to me, the breakdown of the family begins with destroying the marriage bonds, putting the church, taking marriage away from the church and putting it under the state.
That's exactly right.
So I'd love to hear you expound a little bit on that.
Yeah, look, there were three institutions we were given to govern us. There was the family, the church, and the state. And the church should be the preeminent one, and the family and the state should be the junior one. But because the churches have so abandoned their roles, the state has got so big, and now they are taking over the family, and you see the disastrous results. But you were talking about Lenin. After the revolution in Russia, yes, they did. They introduced no-fault divorce. What does that do? That takes away all responsibility for the divorce. You know, it doesn't matter who committed the crime, who was at fault, you just divorce. So that means, you know, before that you had to sort out, try and resolve the problems.
Right.
Because you'd be responsible if you were an unfaithful husband or an unfaithful wife. That could mean maybe you lose custody of the kids.
Right.
Or the property could be different, you know.
Right.
So you had to try and sort out and resolve the problem, which actually resulted in less divorce.
Right.
More marriages stayed together and resolved the problems. So, but Lenin, they did this because they wanted to, when they took over the country, they still had to consolidate their power. They had to keep the family weak until they can consolidate their power. But once they got it all together and they ran the country, they realized the families were being destroyed, and so their they couldn't get good soldiers anymore.
Yes.
They couldn't, they needed the family to come back together, so they reversed their policy.
Yes.
It's just like after the revolution, they legalized homosexuality, but when they realized how much damage it was doing, they banned it again.
Right.
World War II, there was a good example too. The Bolsheviks tried to destroy the churches, right? But then the Nazis attacked Soviet Russia, and nobody was going to fight for the communists, so they legalized the church and used the patriotism of the people to say the church wants you to fight the Nazis.
Yeah.
So they will destroy these institutions, but they realize sometimes to hold their own society together, they have to get a little bit more conservative again, you know, and a little bit back to normal again.
So with the no-fault divorce that Lenin imposed upon the Bolshevik people, the societal consequences were not only damaging, but the other thing was it was a unilateral decision. You could divorce against your spouse's consent without even his or her knowledge, and it was a preordained outcome. Now this is what we actually have in the United States of America with unilateral no-fault divorce. It was interesting because President Ronald Reagan said it was the worst decision of his public career. His biggest regret was signing it into law. Governor Mike Huckabee said it is the worst thing that has happened to America. Can you comment on that?
Well, you know, what is marriage? Marriage is a contract between a man and a woman. And part of that is children, property, there's a whole bunch of things, and that's for a man and a woman to decide amongst themselves. Now you imagine if you're in business, right, and you have a contract with another businessman, and you have no fault contract. He can just break that contract and walk away with no penalties or no consequences.
Right.
What would that do to business?
It would destroy business.
It would destroy business. So if you can walk away from your contract of marriage with no consequences, no matter what your behavior is, no matter how unethical you have been, you are going to destroy marriage.
And if you reward that type of behavior,
because look, you know, when you had a divorce where you had to go to court and fault was adjudicated in court, that could determine how the property was shared. That could determine how the children was shared. So you had to come together and at least try, even if you couldn't keep the marriage together, at least you had to be civil enough with each other and to sort out the suitable arrangements for the children and whatever. What no-fault divorce did was gave one partner the complete right to walk out with no consequences, and in the woman's case, probably almost certainly to take the kids with her.
Right.
So she could be a total ratbag and still have the kids, where the husband could be an angel and lose the kids.
So one thing that I want to go back a little bit further about, we don't have a lot of time left right now, but marriage used to be under the jurisdiction of the church.
Right.
Why is it even under the state? I understand the state has an interest, and the state has an interest in preserving marriage, not destroying marriage. But the marriage institution was a religious institution. It was a sacrament. So is this not a violation of religious liberty? Is this not a violation of perhaps even the Establishment Clause, the Due Process Clause? And this is a big, big issue. I think it's the foundational issue to many of the other issues that we talk about at the talk today.
Well, look, we used to have church marriages, and they were considered legal. It's not called holy matrimony for nothing, is it? It's holy matrimony. It's a wholeness, a partnership in the sight of God, a contract that you enter into. When you took it out of the control of the church and gave it to the state, you told the church you no longer had authority over marriage.
Right.
And so the state has control over marriage, which implies the state has control over the family.
Right.
And so that has been a hugely damaging compounding effect that most of us don't even see the chain of causation.
Right, and the thing is that the state is not a friend of the family. Except, like you said, when they need to have the soldiers, now they become a friend of the family. They've got to be more conservative too.
And they need the factory. The state sees children as a resource to be utilized. A family sees their children as a thing to cherish.
Right.
You know, something to nurture, and something that's theirs.
And the state actually divvies up children or assigns children as if somehow the state was involved in the creation and the rearing of the children, as if somehow the children are the property of the state. And this is a very evil and wicked system. And but right now in the United States of America, for all intents and purposes, we have a divorce law that emulates what Lenin did. The communists were smart enough to say, wait a minute, this is destroying our society, they had to change it. We've not gotten there yet.
No, because the communists are still trying to destroy us. When they consolidate their power, they might actually get a little bit more socially conservative in some ways, for a little while anyway. But it's like in the Soviet Union, they banned homosexuality because they could see the corrosive effects, especially in the military. You know? But in America, they promoted homosexuality because in the Soviet Union, they were trying to keep the country together. Here, they were trying to disintegrate the country.
Well, Trevor, thank you so much for the time. We just didn't have a lot of time right now, but I appreciate you and your knowledge about this and being willing to discuss it with me. Thank you so much.
This is a vital subject, and I'm glad to have the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.